California was promised a high-speed rail system. San Francisco to Los Angeles to Anaheim, speeds up to 220 miles per hour, and a modern way to move across the state. In 2008, voters approved a $9.95 billion bond to help build it. But in 2026, the plan looks very different. The first operating section is now expected to run from Merced to Bakersfield, not San Francisco, not Los Angeles, Merced to Bakersfield. And the latest approved business plan puts that initial segment at $35.7 billion. The full Phase 1 system, from San Francisco to Los Angeles and Anaheim, is now estimated at about $126 billion. So this is not just a story about trains, it is a story about what voters were promised, what taxpayers are paying for, and how a government project can keep moving even when the destination keeps changing. This is California's train to nowhere, and these are the receipts. The story starts in 2008, when California voters approved Proposition 1A, a $9.95 billion bond measure for high-speed rail. The pitch was not a small commuter line. It was a statewide system connecting major regions of California, including the Bay Area, the Central Valley, Los Angeles, Anaheim, and eventually places like Sacramento and San Diego. The official voter material talked about electric trains operating at speeds up to 220 miles per hour. Supporters said it would reduce traffic, cut pollution, create jobs, and give California a transportation backbone for the future. And to be fair, that argument still has appeal. California has brutal traffic, expensive airports, and long travel times between major regions. The problem is not the idea of trains. The problem is what happened after voters said yes. When people hear California high-speed rail, most still picture the big promise: San Francisco to Los Angeles, maybe Los Angeles to Anaheim, and a real alternative to driving Interstate 5 or flying between the Bay Area and Southern California. But the first section California is trying to open is much smaller. The approved 2026 business plan focuses on initial passenger service in the Central Valley from Merced to Bakersfield, with service targeted for 2033. That would be 25 years after voters approved the original bond, and the capital cost for that initial Merced to Bakersfield service is now estimated at $35.7 billion. Pause on that. The bond voters approved was $9.95 billion. The first operating segment is now estimated at $35.7 billion, and that segment still does not reach San Francisco, Los Angeles, or Anaheim. It connects Merced and Bakersfield. That is why critics call it the train to nowhere. Not because Merced and Bakersfield do not matter. They do. The issue is that this was not sold to voters as a Merced to Bakersfield train. It was sold as the beginning of a statewide high-speed rail network, and even the progress numbers need careful wording. The authority now says 171 miles are under design and construction, 119 miles are under active construction, and more than 80 miles of guideway are complete. That is real infrastructure. But it is not the same thing as 80 miles of passenger-ready high-speed rail. Using the 2015 groundbreaking as the start, more than 80 miles of guideway over roughly 11 years works out to about 7 miles of guideway per year. In 2019, Governor Gavin Newsom said the quiet part out loud. He did not start this project, and that matters. The bond passed in 2008, years before he became governor. But in his 2019 State of the State address, Newsom said the project, as then planned, would cost too much and take too long. He said there was not a path to get from San Francisco to Los Angeles under the existing plan. Then he redirected focus to the Central Valley section. This was the turning point. The state was not killing high-speed rail. It was narrowing the first deliverable. Instead of asking, when do we get San Francisco to Los Angeles? The state began asking, when can we get Merced to Bakersfield? That may be practical from a construction standpoint, but politically, it is a huge shift. Voters approved a bond to help establish high-speed train service linking major California regions. So when the first usable line becomes a Central Valley segment, taxpayers are allowed to ask a basic question: is this still the project we voted for? Now let's talk about money. The $9.95 billion bond was never supposed to pay for the whole system by itself. The project always expected federal, state, local, and private funding, but the scale of the increase is the receipt. The latest 2026 business plan puts Merced to Bakersfield at $35.7 billion. The San Francisco to Bakersfield portion is estimated at about $61.2 billion. And full Phase 1, from San Francisco to Los Angeles and Anaheim, is estimated at about $126 billion. That is not a rounding error. That is a different universe. Again, the bond was not the whole budget, but this is where trust starts to break. When a project gets sold with one headline number and keeps coming back with bigger numbers, the public starts wondering whether the first number was ever realistic. That is the pattern with mega projects. Start with a vision. Underestimate the difficulty. Run into land acquisition problems, utilities, environmental review, lawsuits, and contract issues. Then, years later, the public is told the project is too far along to stop. That is how sunk cost becomes public policy. The cost is one receipt. Time is another. Now, these comparisons need a warning. Countries are not identical. China has a completely different political system, different land rules, and a level of central control the United States does not have. Japan, Spain, Taiwan, and Morocco all had different geography, funding, labor rules, and permitting systems. So the point is not that California can copy another country one for one. The point is simpler. Other places have turned high-speed rail from construction into passenger service much faster than California has. Japan's first Shinkansen, the Tokaido line from Tokyo to Osaka, opened in 1964 after a roughly 5-year construction timeline. Spain's Madrid to Seville high-speed line opened in 1992 after about 4.5 years. China's Beijing to Shanghai high-speed railway began construction in 2008 and opened to passengers in 2011. Taiwan started high-speed rail construction in 2000 and opened service in 2007. Morocco launched construction on its high-speed line in 2011 and inaugurated it in 2018. California voters approved the bond in 2008. Construction broke ground in 2015. Initial passenger service is now targeted for 2033. That is 25 years from voter approval to first planned passenger service. Even if you start the clock at the 2015 groundbreaking, that is still about 18 years from groundbreaking to the first planned riders. High-speed rail is not science fiction. Other countries have built it, opened it, and carried passengers. California is still trying to get to the first Central Valley operating segment. Now, here is the part that needs to be fair. This project is not imaginary. California has construction underway. There are structures, guideways, workers, and real infrastructure being built in the Central Valley. If someone says nothing has been built, that is too simplistic. But if someone says California has high-speed rail, that is also not true. The latest authority update says more than 80 miles of guideway are complete, along with 61 completed major structures. That is the strongest version of the progress argument. The state does not yet have passenger high-speed rail service. It has visible construction, but not a functioning system carrying riders between the major cities voters expected. And that distinction matters because taxpayers are not just buying construction activity. They are buying transportation. They are buying useful service. They are buying a completed route that solves a real travel problem. The 2026 plan expects the first service to run between Merced and Bakersfield, with 8 daily round trips. That is an initial operating segment, not the statewide system most voters imagined. Supporters will say every rail system has to start somewhere, and that is true. But critics have a serious question. If the first section does not connect San Francisco or Los Angeles, how many people will use it? That is not an insult to the Central Valley. It is a transportation question. Trains work best when they connect dense destinations with high travel demand. Merced to Bakersfield can serve a real region, but the original selling point was connecting California's major population centers. So the risk is obvious. The state may spend tens of billions on a line that is only truly valuable if billions more are spent later. The first segment becomes the argument for the next segment, and every time the price goes up, taxpayers are told the only responsible choice is to keep going. This is where oversight reports matter. The California State Auditor found major management problems years ago. A 2018 audit said the authority began construction before it had fully secured land, moved utilities, and completed key agreements. That created delays. Delays created cost pressure, and the audit criticized the authority's contract management. With a project this expensive, small management failures become billion-dollar problems. If land is not secured, construction slows. If utilities are not moved, contractors wait. If oversight is weak, taxpayers pay for the friction. That is why the train to nowhere criticism sticks. It is about whether California has shown the discipline to deliver this project at a cost and schedule the public can trust. So far, the receipt says no. Now let's give the strongest case for the project. California is a huge state. Its roads are crowded, its airports are overloaded, housing and job centers are spread across long distances. A completed high-speed rail system could give people another option besides driving or flying. It could connect inland communities to job markets, reduce emissions if people actually use it, and add transportation capacity in a growing state. That is the best argument for continuing. But that argument only works if the public believes the project is still governed by reality. patience is not the same thing as a blank check, and vision is not the same thing as delivery. So the real question is not, are trains good? That is too easy. The real question is, what exactly are Californians buying now? Are they buying a Central Valley starter line? Are they buying the eventual San Francisco to Los Angeles system? Or are they buying a project that needs another generation of funding before it becomes what voters approved? Put the receipt on the table. Merced to Bakersfield, $35.7 billion. Target passenger service, 2033. Full Phase 1 estimate, about $126 billion. Voter-approved bond, $9.95 billion. Original public vision, connect California's major regions by high-speed rail. Current first deliverable, Central Valley service. California's high-speed rail project may still become useful. It may eventually connect major cities and justify part of the investment, but taxpayers do not owe any project unlimited trust. So here is the question. Would you keep funding it, pause it until the numbers make sense, or cancel it before the receipt gets even bigger? Drop your answer in the comments. This is Vivid Receipts. Follow for the numbers behind the headline.